What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to Salty Runback, here to be your weekly intake of North American Developmental League of Legends, and we've done it. We have welcomed 2 new teams into the NACL for the start of the spring split. We've got Near Airport, as everybody had expected, and Apex Mission Impossible. Not on anybody's bingo card, maybe, except for the players themselves, most likely. Coming into this weekend of games, congratulations to 2 very, very different stories in terms of this OQ. We're going to get into all of that and more. My name is Grapes. I'm joined alongside Hawk. Hawk, how are you doing today?
Grapes, it's been a long day, but I'm really stoked about this past weekend. And I think that is definitely where I want to focus most of my attention for this episode, because I'm going to go on record and say I think this is the greatest weekend in the history of Tier 3. I think this surpasses the Proving Grounds tournaments of old, of 2021 and 2020, in terms of like level of hype being brought to the table and absolute tomfoolery in the bracket. And it was a treat to be a part of. We also had great CeeLo games. By the way, we're not going to be able to talk about CeeLo on this episode because we got a fucking huge roster to go over. So just subscribe to the Patreon and watch Office Hours this week if you want your fix there. Because not a ton happened, but still, like, obviously important stuff. So
shout out to Stony Brook University in King Kong, baby.
SUNY Stony Brook. All I'm saying is I was kind of a believer. I wanted to put them on my top 25 a few weeks ago, but I realized we didn't even have them like input as a chip in the smart sheet. So I was like, all right, then that maybe I'm a clown for that. And
yeah, again, Office Hours, we'll talk about all that. We'll also have our those will be our games this weekend to qualify into the national championship. We're going to get 8 of those spots filled in this week, as well as the NACC upper semis as well, which are going to be fun. That is all we'll talk about for CeeLo, though. We're already spoiling ourselves here. But
if you want more like CeeLo thoughts, go watch our last headlines episode. We had a headline all about it that still applies for this week, and just go watch Office Hours. Like, Grapes will lay it down for you guys, and who knows, maybe he'll ask me for my opinions or something that he can air on the show.
If you want to call it, if you want to deliver a segment, that's all.
Dude, I'd be kind of down.
You're more than welcome.
If I have time, I'm kind of busy this week, but
anyway, there's a big weekend for Salty Runback as well. Yes. We did our live stream of the North NA versus Friendly Fellas best of 5 to qualify into the NACL. A revival of Tier 3 tonight, as we called it. Was a very fun experience, very chaotic and stressful experience at times. But if you want to check out the VOD of that, we'll probably be posting it at some point. It's on the Tiny Sports channel, so you can go take a look at that one. And then, Hawk, you were over on the mainstream for the weekend as well. And we got a lot of really, really good games to go over. But before we do so, make sure you like, subscribe to the channel as well. Check out all of our socials.
We hit 200 last week. Thank you, everyone.
Let's get to
1,000.
We haven't talked about this. Yeah, that's a pretty big next step. We're already at like 170 going into the year, but you know what? Let's do it. Why not? Let's hit 1,000.
Yeah, let's hit 1,000. And also join the Discord. Everyone, we had a watch party. So I heard, for Dog Fans versus Apex after the stream ended for us, and from what I heard, there was some. It was rowdy in there. We also had a lot of people barking on Saturday night, which we'll talk about in a bit. But
the only people who were potentially louder than Hawk at the end of that call in Game 5 were me and Shivy in the Salty Runback Discord.
I'm sorry, I refuse to believe anyone was louder than me, but I appreciate the
screaming at the top of our lungs as we got a little Baron steal at the very end. So let's get into the headlines here today. We're going to start off with our Patreon question, and it's also going to be related to one of the teams that qualified into the NACL, and that is Near Airport. They took down the Friendly Fellas in a very decisive 3-0, although Game 2 was very hectic, I would say. Wixie had himself a bit of a 1v9 performance, but it was not enough for them to seal the deal. But what I think the bigger news here about this Near Airport team was not them qualifying into the NACL, but potentially what is going to happen if they do, once they did qualify into the NACL. Here's Doublelift with what would potentially happen to Near Airport if they did qualify in before they actually did.
Will you guys actually play in NACL since it will take more work? Okay, that is actually the biggest question that we're having that we need to figure out. is initially I thought that we would be able to and it would be no problem, but then as we played more and more, we realized, oh, like this is quite a big commitment, and you know, Biofrost has school. We all have lives. It doesn't seem like it, I know, but we all have lives. And to like play scrims 3-4 days a week and matches 1 to 2 days a week for us is like, it's a big commitment, so we need to like figure that out.
So potentially worrying news here from Doublelift. Although I feel like he's been known to just like yap about a bunch of like shit before like any final decisions have been made. But by the way, this comes from Faris in our Patreon section of the Discord, who asks, what would be the repercussions of a team like Near Airport signing up to play in the NACL and then qualifying into the NACL and then deciding not to play in the NACL?
There's so many ways to look at this, so many angles of attack. One is like he was just yapping on his stream and like maybe they'll play, which is a possibility. But then it's like just keep your fucking mouth shut, dude. You know what I mean? Because like what if his teammates are pissed at him for like saying all this? And to be honest, the fact that nobody has come out from Near Airport and been like, guys, don't worry, we're gonna play in the NACL. It's been like a week. The fact that this has not happened is like a little concerning, right? But I mean, it would not surprise me at all if, you know, all of this was just like Doublelift and friends being like, guys, wouldn't it be so fun if we like noob stomped the OQ real quick and then dipped? Or better yet, I actually bet he's probably pretty forthcoming where they were all like super gassed up and jazzed to like make their return and all that. And then they realized it would actually require work. And they're lazy and they just wanted to make a mockery of our scene. So I know that doesn't really answer the question, but that's at least my thoughts on the situation. And I'm pretty pissed about it. I'm not going to lie.
I think that we have to take a step back here just a little bit if we're while observing and analyzing the situation. I think the most likely scenario and the most likely like option of all this is probably the first thing that you brought up, which is that he was just yapping on stream. He saw a question in his chat, the endorphins lit up in his mind, and he was like, actually, yeah, we were talking about this last week. But the whole point of playing in this OQ, I feel like for a team like this is that, you know, you could potentially qualify into the LTA. You could win the NACL. You could promote in. You could take down Disguised, right? If Doublelift and friends, and if they wanted to come in and, you know, like run the OQ for a little bit for fun, they could have just done it last year or done it the year before. Like, I mean, the reason that you would do it this year is because of the promotion aspect into the LTA. So if they didn't think about that at least a little bit, that would just be very, very surprising to me. And we also listened to, if you guys watched The Dive, Medios is on that show, and he's like one of their coaches, and Croissant was helping them out this past week. But Medios said that they in I think the first episode when that team was announced, that like, yeah, like, you know, we'll see how hard they care once we do get how much like effort we're gonna put into like winning the NACL. But it seemed like in his words and his ideas that if they got into the NACL, they were going to play. And so maybe it will end up having some different rosters. Maybe they'll be like, you know, he mentioned Biofrost is at school. Maybe they were subbing with a different support in scrims. Maybe that player will come in and help them out or something like that. But I don't know. I just find it pretty hard to believe that they wouldn't just play in the league.
And it's exactly like, they did have that. The Doublelift has also said on stream, he was like, yeah, guys, we want to promote to the LTA. Like, he gave like a whole explanation of everything like the day after the roster was announced, and they seemed like pretty gung-ho, but I don't know. It's just, I'm a little concerned that they've not like come out and said anything. I feel like it is actually a legitimate conversation happening behind the scenes, which just worries me because it shouldn't be a legitimate conversation. They should have had this all planned out. What?
You know what this is? You know, like how, like, you know, if you're like addicted to something, you need like higher and higher like levels of it in order to get that same feeling. Like Doublelift and Pobelter were playing ARAM Clash one day, and they were like, dude, they're trying to get that competitive feeling back. It's like, guys, it's not hitting the same.
Like,
we got to do something a little bit crazier.
Just like Tom Brady, Lena needs to like leave Doublelift to get him to retire from League of Legends.
No. Don't suggest that. We're gonna get
kidding.
clipped.
I'm kidding. I'm
We're
kidding.
gonna get clipped.
I'm
Dom,
kidding.
Dom,
I'm
this is not
kidding.
real. This is
I'm
not-
kidding. I'm kidding. That's probably a really bad look for me after like flaming the fuck out of Doublelift. I promise I do not wish for that to happen.
Yeah. I hope they play. I hope they just.
I hope they play. I hope they
Honestly, if I hope if NACL gives them an exception to stream their games, which I feel like would be a pretty no-brainer decision given what they've
Yes,
seen
it should be.
over in
It
the
should be.
NLC.
Yep.
Like, you can scrim like once or twice a week, maybe.
Well, see,
and-
that's what I don't.
and just
Yeah.
play.
And
Like,
so
you
that's
don't-
what I.
Yeah.
If
If
what
you
I was
want to
gonna say
really
is-
win the NACL, you'll probably have to scrim like 4 times a week or whatever,
Sure.
like, as you said. But you don't have to do.
and that's
all
my
of that.
point. Is like, or well, I haven't made this point yet. That's a point that I have. Is it's like, how could the NACL be too much work? Because at absolute minimum, you could just show up and play match days and come ninth or something. You know what I mean? Like, that's a completely viable solution to this problem. Which I think is way better than like giving the spot to somebody else still. Because I want to kind of get into the conversation, Grapes, of what happens if they don't play. Because again, I do think it's at least something that needs to be entertained. Because, I mean, that would be really bad. And I think no one would, by the way, have more reason to be super pissed about that than Respawn. Because if the option is, okay, we just remove the final best of 5 from the tournament, right? And we have those 2 games right before be like 4 NACL spots and then 4 teams qualify. Respawn's probably not going to make it there because they lost to Near Airport in the 4th round, which means they didn't get to flip the bracket away from Citadel. So I'd be pretty pissed if I was in those shoes.
I guess so. I think that just the scene can't. There's no way to do that. I feel like they can't. There's no way they have made that decision fast enough where they're going to be able to change the schedule, and change the format of the whole. There's no way you could change the format of the whole qualifier.
Here's what I bet. No. But here's what I bet you is going to happen if it happens. Is they're going to be like, oh fuck, who's the 4th team we put in the NACL? We only qualified 3. They're just going to be like, hey, remember that team that lost in the best of 5?
Wow.
Get them. You know what I mean? And then it's gonna be a real saucy.
It'll continue the streak of a team that failed to win the promotion tournament getting a spot,
Like, oh my god. I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I know I went really hard. Did I go too hard at the beginning? I don't know.
I don't know. I think
I'm
I
just
think
pissed
I
that,
think
I'm
we have to
pissed that
take
this is a
it.
conversation because it makes a total mockery of this because I already go on Reddit where they're posting Near Airport post-match threads. Of course, they don't post post-match threads for literally any of the other games. It's only Near Airport. And all the commenters are like, they were playing silvers for the first 2 rounds. I'm like, these people are so uninformed, it's crazy. Because
they were only playing
literally
silvers the
only
first 1
the
round.
bottom 5 seeds in the whole tournament, by the way, were not Apex tiers. Every other team was Masters Plus in every role. And so but that's what people think of North American Amateur. And when they see, a team like Exodus, they're like, oh, they're just fucking Emerald piss randoms. I'm like, no, they're actually pretty good players. They just aren't Doublelift, And so if they came here, made a mockery of our scene for a couple weeks, and then just decided that it was too much effort, that would be an insanely terrible look. It would be horrible. And it just we can go back 2 or 3 weeks to when Near Airport was announced, and we did a headline about it here on Salty Runback, and I said, I hope when they come in, they actually do literally anything to try and improve the tier 3, tier 2 space and actually bring something to the table instead of just kind of doing it for funsies. And
Did you see them? They glazed Cerulean. Cerulean was they showed.
they did
Cerulean's jacked bod.
Cerulean. They were afraid of that guy. They were afraid of Cerulean. I'll give them that. But
Here's the last thing I'll say is that you talk about it being too much work. The space has gotten to the point where every single player that's competing in the NACL either has a full to part-time job or is a full to part-time student. So there are people that are making it work and probably going to be putting in even more effort than you guys would even necessarily have to. It's definitely possible to do both. Especially
is it the alternative for most of these guys just streaming solo queue all the time? But that's
what
easier,
I'm saying.
right? It's
Your
easier for them.
alternative. Your alternative.
These guys are
is
so
you
fucking
streaming.
lazy. It's crazy. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, we'll see. We'll see if they actually do decide to play in the NACL. If an official
They
decision
better,
is
dude.
made, if an
I'm-
official decision is made in that direction, maybe I'll have a little bit of a stronger opinion. But I feel like right now it's just a little bit of Doublelift yapping. But we'll see if I get proven wrong.
if they play in the NACL and they actually do again, they like actually care and like bring eyes to the tier 2 space and maybe do something other than just like kind of show up and play. I will take back everything I said about Doublelift. This guy will clearly care about North America more than I expected, but as of right now, I don't think he does. We'll see.
All right, we'll see. We talked about that for like 12 minutes, so let's move on to our next headline here.
Good headline though.
Which
Thanks,
should
Shout
be
out
the
Faris.
bigger
Shout out Faris.
story. I think this headline should be the bigger story.
This
and that
headline is
that
the bigger story.
Apex Mission Impossible, a team that finished top 8 in both OQs last summer, a team that was around the average tiers for the last 2 or so years that they've been in the space. They did it. They qualified into the NACL, culminating in a 3-2 bloodbath banger best of 5 series with 2 games that went over 40 minutes. They played another game.
No, 3 games over 40 minutes. 3.
Sorry, 2 games over 50 minutes. I think is what I
Yes,
what I meant
2
to
games
say.
over 50, 3 games over 40.
They had another 50-minute game against Dorado Gaming the day before, going through the entire bracket and making it into the NA Challengers League. Shout out to Decoy, to Lojaz, to their new addition Phi Mini, to Baz, and to Pocus, to all the coaching staff, including Jad, Tea Time, and of course our good friend Leanne, their manager as well. If I'm forgetting anybody, please shout them out in the comments below. But what
Did you shout out Coach Jad as well? Sorry,
I did shout out
Okay,
Jad.
I think that's
Yeah.
everybody. Yeah.
So they did it. They're playing in tier 2 next split if the owner's wife lets them. Allegedly. But
I dropped that nugget on broadcast. I was very happy. Yeah.
But here's the question here. Let's look at the road that Apex Mission Impossible took to get into the NACL. It started relatively easy at the bottom end of the bracket where they played a couple of other teams and then took down Red Note in that next round. I'm actually missing this up here I'm gonna make sure I get all this. Canadian Cartel, then Red Note, then Don't Ban Viego, Dorado Gaming, and then Dogfan. So those are the 5 opponents that they faced, and some people might be a little bit critical of them and of maybe just that side of the bracket in general, because some of the teams that were considered to be the favorites, that being Citadel, Tempest, and Gravity, and Galaxy Gaming, all were eliminated earlier in competition. And so question to you, Hawk, is did Apex get a free bid into the NACL, or is this spot truly earned? I feel like we both know what you're going to say here.
Oh, yeah. First of all, before I even entertain this point of view that I will thoroughly dismantle, I need to give like so much congratulations to Apex Mission Impossible. I am so happy that this team won. Not because they were playing dog fans. I'm very happy for this team because to me, this is the definition of grassroots esports finding an unbelievable win for themselves. I mean, it's an organization that like has a very specific mission, which is to promote like Canadian talent, right? And to, stick with their guys, which is amazing. And they put together this team that has been largely playing together now for over a year and grinding and grinding and grinding. They were one of the first teams in the offseason to announce their roster, if not the first team in the offseason to announce their roster for OQs. And I mean, they worked so hard to get to this point. I know how much this means to all these players. Like, I think it is incredible, the story for Apex and these 5 guys, what they've been able to do in their time together. Really, I think becoming more than the sum of their parts, if you will, where I don't think anyone would have necessarily had these 5 players on their list of people to be on promotion teams for this tournament, but they worked extremely hard together and they were better than everybody else. And I just think that's incredible. And I needed to be heard what I said at the end there. They were better than everybody else. I don't give a fuck what their road was to qualify because it was also harder than people think. And I mean, they managed to do it. Like, I have a lot of God. Okay, Grapes, you need to take the mic because I need to like organize my thoughts on this.
Okay.
A little bit better.
So
Yeah.
so let's look at the teams in the half of the bracket that Apex had to get through. So of course we talked about Tempest Gaming, we talked about Gravity, we talked about Galaxy Gaming as well. Red Note was another one of those teams that was a big favorite, or maybe some people maybe consider to be a favorite in that side of the bracket, and they did lose to Apex Mission Impossible. They lost pretty convincingly to Apex Mission Impossible. In fact, it was a 2-0, and the first game was maybe a little bit close, and the second game wasn't close at all. Then, of course, just because of the side of the bracket they were on, their next matchup against Don't Ban Viego, it was what it was. And then they played against Dorado Gaming, who got there by taking down Galaxy Gaming in the previous round. And so if you thought that, Dorado Gaming were going to be some slouches, well, they beat Galaxy, which is a team that maybe some people were expecting to be at this stage of the competition. So it's not, if Apex beat Dorado by process of elimination, they should have beat Galaxy, right? And then their final matchup was against Dog Fans, who just 2-1'd Tempest in the previous round as well. Now, you can make the argument that, hey, Tempest, it was their first day playing with Aaron on their team. They maybe should have, maybe they would have been able to play better if they got some scrims, but that's all part of the process of this OQ as well, right? If you're a team like Tempest who's coming in with a newly kind of formulated roster versus a team that gets, has a little bit more experience or whatever, like, you should be rewarded for having that extra experience. And I think that is what Apex was able to do at the end of the day. The bracket
keep going.
The bracket is full of chaos. That is the entire point of this bracket and the entire reason why we were excited for this, because it meant that one best of 3 that went against you could result in you being in a horrible situation for the rest of the tournament. And I feel like that is why a lot of people were excited about a 64-team open double elimination bracket. And that is what Riot was trying to accomplish by making this the format and not just inviting the top 16 teams and playing them through a GSL group stage, right? And so you can't have it both ways. You can't always have the best teams on paper qualify while also having a very volatile schedule that still rewards teams for being incredibly consistent throughout a couple of weeks, and also, and taking down basically whoever's in their path, because that is what is given to them.
And I want to strengthen your argument too, because people would say like, well, why will we have volatility if it means the best teams on paper don't qualify? Because this is why we play the fucking games, guys. Like, I think so many, because I had the same issues when people would flame the committee in years past. So many people they refuse to admit that maybe their read on the teams is wrong, or that people aren't as good as they think they are. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's where so much of this discourse comes from. And I do want to say too, like, I think it's fine to be critical of this format, but you just can't use Apex's run as an example, because if Tempest and Galaxy, who we expected to be top 5 teams, won their series, then Apex would have had to beat both of them to qualify. Like, this isn't like it's not like they had some Mickey Mouse run. It's because Galaxy and Tempest weren't built like that. They fucking choked. You know what I mean?
I think the thing is, like, as you say, if they were that good, they would have won the series against the team that were supposedly so much worse than them.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, that's exactly my point. Like Tempest and Galaxy just they weren't as good as people thought. That's why we play the games. You know what I mean? And you can argue like, oh, they just had a bad day. Well, guess who didn't? Apex Mission Impossible. And something really important to emphasize here too is that Apex was rated like a top 10 team by anyone with a brain coming into this tournament. It's not like there's some complete piss randoms that came out of nowhere. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't do like a straight up power ranking, but Grapes, on our tier list, I think we had them like 8th or 9th. Like, that they were obviously a top 10 team. Coming in, they were 9th.
We had them behind Red Note, which now looks kind of dumb, but we did.
And we were
wrong
about that. Yeah. But we had them as a top 10 team coming in, and they played like it. You know what I mean? I think there's just this. People are like so caught up in like the best teams should make it. It's like, what? But what if they're not the best teams? Tempest did not look good in any of their series last Saturday. And I think we're also like, I know I'm kind of going off on a tangent at this point, but if we're looking at Dog Fans specifically, Dog Fans had to beat 2 top 10 teams to make it to that final match. Not only did they beat Tempest Gaming, They also beat Gravity, who is another team that like we had high up on our contenders radar. We thought this team would be pretty damn good. And obviously they ended up bowing out in back-to-back 3-game series against good teams on that Saturday. But like, I think anyone would argue that Gravity was a good team. Dog fans took both of them down. This team was nuts, dude. Like, I think it's disrespectful to Dog fans to say Apex had a Mickey Mouse run. It's unnecessarily, like, yeah, I don't know. It just feels unnecessary. And I think Apex, they played like a team that absolutely deserved to make it. And I think those are all my thoughts on that matter. The only game I'm willing to concede, I think the fact that they drew Don't Ban Viego in the 3rd round is objectively very lucky, and that's cool. But they had to go through Red Note in round 2 to get there, so I'm okay with that.
And the other argument is like, oh, if like the seeding was based off of solo queue, so like how are we supposed to know what seed you are? Play more solo queue. If you're really that good, you should prove it by playing on the ladder, helping both improve your region and also improving your chances at doing well in the open qualifier by a higher seed. There's a reason that Near Airport was number 1 in terms of seeding, is because all those guys are really good at the game, and they also grind a lot of solo queue, and that's why we talked about it in that episode when they first got announced. There's like 2 top 5 players on the ladder right now as we speak on those teams, even because they're Wash pros. And so if you're a team that was like, man, like they got to play all these like bad teams because of seeding, well, if the ladder was treated with a little bit more decency and respect, maybe the seeding would have been a little bit better as well.
On that point too, Tempest Gaming was the 2 seed, right? And so if you think Apex is some team that they just would have rolled over, then Tempest, by playing solo queue, they had the easiest bracket ever. Oh wait, but they weren't. They didn't do it. Are they stupid? They didn't win their match against Dog fans. You know what I mean? I think Gordo's tweet response to Asila summed it up best. I don't have it up right now, but Gordo had a good take.
And I want to give some credit to Asila. I don't think he was. He was playing devil's advocate, I think, in that he was saying like, I understand why people are upset by bringing up that argument.
And to be clear, we didn't make this headline because of Asila either. There's a lot of people that have had these thoughts, but yeah. So you're stupid if you think AMI didn't deserve it, and also let's fucking go AMI. I'm really happy for you guys. You absolutely deserve it.
Could you imagine a world where a hypothetical where 8 out of 10 times Apex doesn't make it out of this OQ? I definitely could.
Yeah,
because,
sure.
It's volatile. It's very volatile, and also on paper, maybe they weren't as strong as some of the other teams, sure. But the fact that we play this volatile bracket, that is the reason that this is exciting. That's the reason this is entertaining. And that's why we have this podcast where people come in and listen to us talk about the games, because that is what makes the OQs exciting. College football for years, for centuries, for decades, they played their season, and at the end of the year, whoever the AP voted as the number 1 team were crowned national champions. And people thought, oh, that's boring. Let's add some entertainment to it. So they added a national championship game at the end of the year. Then they added a college football playoff with 4 teams. And now they have a college football playoff with 12 teams. You know why? Because people like volatility. People like insanity. People like miracle runs. And Apex just went on one of them. And that should be celebrated. That should be rewarded. And that should not be necessarily criticized.
Yep.
All that to say, congratulations to Apex, congratulations to your airport. We hope to see both of you competing in the NACL the next following split. But let's get into the games that are still left to go, as we still have 10 teams in the running for one final NACL spot. Going fully down the line in terms of the matchups that we will be starting on Saturday, Tempest plays against St. Clair, who have gone on a little bit of a run on their own. Dorado Gaming taking on Fisher. Respawn playing Citadel, and I think we can announce that game will be on the NACL stream first, because of course it will be. And then finally, Ducky Getters against Pepe Lala to round things out. Friendly Fellas are on the top side of the bracket, playing the eventual winner champion out of the first 2 matchups that we saw. And then Dog Fans will be on the bottom side of that bracket, leaving 10 teams left to fight for that one singular spot. Hawk, I want your 90%, 50%, and 10% prediction for how this weekend will unfold.
All right, I'll give you my 90 first, right? Like, I feel like we should kind of parse it out. My 90% prediction. Ooh, actually, maybe I'll give you my 50% prediction first, because I think this is the one that I'm the most confident in. But my 50% prediction is that the Citadel will be the team that promotes out. Real white bread ass prediction right there. That's my 50%. I think the Citadel, we've been having all these conversations about like, oh, they went to the lower bracket early. I think now, having seen the form of all the other teams, I think the Ducky Getters is probably the second best team in the lower bracket right now. And that match between them will probably dictate who gets out.
Oh, we're gonna go back and forth here.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, my 50% is that we're gonna get a CELOL matchup in that upper side. It'll be Fisher against St. Clair. I'll have Fisher taking down Dorado, and I'll have St. Clair taking it down Tempest. Maybe that's a little bit.
That's a
closer to
50%.
10.
Oh,
maybe it's a little closer
shit.
to 10. Maybe it's a little closer to 10 than 50.
Wow.
But I think that Tempest definitely looked like they were struggling, and I think that St. Clair actually have had a really, really good OQ. They took down Slated 6, who was a team that we were very excited to watch, actually, coming into the weekend. They took them down 2-1. And then they also took down Fantastic 5, who were on a little bit of a Cinderella run of their own, beating Red Note and then YBN1, which is the team with a Meech on it, kind of
I think
in
that was
the
an
process
FF.
there. It was an FF?
I think that was an FF.
That's mega cringe. Wait,
Yeah.
really?
That's what I heard.
Coulthor came into my chat, and I was, like, hyping him up, and he was like, yeah, we did it. So, like, maybe he was just taking
Then
it, but...
maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong, or that's really funny.
or Coulthor was just taking the free praise. Either way.
Wait. Let me try to confirm this. Because I don't want to spread misinformation on the pod either.
Anyway, St. Clair has been playing really good. I think that, Lig and Miracle are definitely like the strength of this team, as well as Flocon, who's I think actually playing at a very good level. I'd give them a okay, maybe it's not 50. Maybe this is my 10% actually. That St. Clair Fisher is the matchup in that one. And maybe we'll go one step further and say the winner that will have maybe my 10%, Hawk. Will you take my revision on this?
Hang on. Sorry. Give me yes, I'll take a revision. So, sorry, your 10% is your St. Clair one?
No, so my 10% will now be that one of the college teams will make it into the best of 5.
Okay.
That'll be my 10%. It could be St. Clair, it could be Fisher.
So you're also saying that they beat Friendly Fellas to get there?
Yes.
Okay. I'm down with that. And then what's your 50% for me?
Well, I haven't thought that far. So do you have the extra data there?
Yeah, hang on. I'm YBN1.
Here we go. Here's my 50%. My 50% is that Dog fans will also be in that L61. I think that even though Respawn and Citadel are very strong teams, and Citadel has been building a lot of momentum coming in, I think there's something about the Dogs, baby. I think they got a good chance. They were looking really good. I think Barrick actually.
Oh no, I was wrong by the way. Fantastic Five they played the games. I see the match history here. My bad.
Okay, so Coulthor was not taking Stolen Valor.
Coulthor was not taking the piss. Dude, that would be so funny if that was the case. Okay.
He said Amumu OP, so I assume there's an Amumu.
All right. My bad. That's my bad.
My 50% is Dog fans wins their series and makes it into the best of 5 as well. Something about that Cinderella run that they've gone on. I think Nightstar is playing like out of his mind right now. He almost 1v9 that series, especially at the back half of it. And I think honestly Barrick's actually been playing pretty well for them as well.
Barrick was my
other
ace of the series for Dog fans against Apex for sure. I actually thought Nightstar did not play very well against Apex, but he was amazing on Saturday against Tempest and Gravity. So I'm down with that. I think that's a good 50%. I think Dog fans definitely has what it takes to beat whoever comes to them. Remember, they only have to win one series to make it to the best of 5.
So I'm giving 50-50 on whoever runs into them out of that 4.
I think I'm down with that. Okay. My 10% prediction. Fuck. I kind of hate my 50%. It's so boring. I'm going to change that one too. Okay. Here's my 10%. My 10% is that the Ducky Getters promote to the NACL. I think this team is actually extremely good. I think they can beat the Citadel or Respawn. I think they can beat Dog fans. And by extension, I think they can kind of beat anybody. So that'll be my 10%. My 50% will be that I think... Let me look at the bracket.
Here's my 90%. My 90%. 90%.
Nothing feels guaranteed.
90% we get a pentakill in one of these games across the board. If you look at the bot laners on all of these teams, there are some really, really good ADCs across the board. You have, of course, Wixie and Nightstar in those losers bracket semifinal games, the play-in games, and then you have Aaron, you have Lig, you have Zev and Brabro actually have been playing really, really well in this OQ specifically, even though we maybe didn't have super high expectations of them coming in. And then, of course, you have Sushi and Instinct, who have been playing really good throughout this entire qualifier, and we had high expectations for. And then Enthralled in that bottom side for Ducky Getters. So I think,
dude, there's so much ADC talent in this region. It's crazy, man.
there's a lot of really good ADs in this pool of 10, and so my bet is that one of them will get a pentakill.
All right, that's pretty good. Okay, 10% Ducky Getters promoted to the NACL. I'm going to just take 50% as the flip side. I think Friendly Fellas have a 50-50 of beating whoever comes to them, if not actually being favored over Tempest Gaming. 90%, I think, I don't know. 90%.
Yeah, just say something boring and get it over with.
This is so... 90% Tempest Gaming doesn't make it out.
Wow, you're giving them a 10% chance to make it in.
Yep.
Crazy. Hey, Citadel does look pretty good.
You know how
would say,
I pooped really hard on the Citadel after they looked bad and lost.
I'm
doing that
good.
now to what?
They looked very good this week, I would
exactly.
say.
So I'm
their
going to shit
opponents-
really hard on Tempest Gaming for how they looked last week and say, guys, get it the fuck together, all right? Because I know how good you can be. You're better than this. 10% you make it out.
Hey, it seemed to work with Citadel last week, so maybe
Right.
they're going to
Yeah.
spark a flame into Tempest. Okay.
Because I think Tempest playing well is good for the tournament, but they got to do it.
They got to do it. Hey, they didn't do it last week, and that's why we got Apex in the NACL, because they did not play as good as Apex Mission Impossible did. Let's move on to our next headline, talking about the actual NACL and another one of the teams that may or may not be in it next split. We hit on it a little bit in our last episode, but it just seemed very off topic, and also it was such new information at the time that we didn't really dive into it. But Polestar put out an announcement, which was the organization that that was buying the spot of Cincinnati Fear, saying that they had some investors pull out and they no longer would be able to support the contracts that they verbally agreed to with their players and staff, meaning that they have basically let them all go and explore other options. That means that there'll be massive restructuring of these players' contracts before they actually do start playing in the NACL. People have rumored or speculated that could mean playing for zero money or very, very little money or much less money than they may have previously agreed to. There's another option where the players sit out the split, they decide not to play for Polestar, and Polestar finds other players who would be willing to take up a similar offer to them. Or maybe there's other third options that are around here. But I think overall, we can say that this is a very, very bad situation for everybody involved in the space, especially including the players and staff that were handheld their way to agreeing to be a part of this organization with all these promises that were unfortunately stripped away from them out of their own control.
Yeah.
What is the best possible solution out of all of this?
It's a bad look, dude. Like, this is not the first time this happened this offseason. And what I don't get about all of this is how does Pulse buy the spot if their financials are that bad? Because at least with Nightmare, right, they weren't buying anything. They just are like, whoops, sorry. You know what I mean? Which is a bad look. But like, are teams not vetted before they buy the spot? Or is it because there's no minimum salary anymore? Like, just they don't care. And
yeah,
if that happens, then, obviously it reflects on Pulse, which isn't a good look either. I don't really want to speculate on it too much because I just don't think it's constructive, and I've already been a negative Nelly on this episode. But I just don't understand, how that happens on multiple levels. I don't know what the best solution is. I really don't. I
think the thing that's most disappointing to me is that we were very excited about the roster coming into.
Yeah, it was
season.
A great roster,
and because there was a couple of veterans like Tenacity and Spawn, and then there was this big trio of rookies slash sophomores in Toasty, Kryra, and Cryogen that we were very, very excited to watch. And we thought that I think we still think that these players could be the next stars of North America. They could take on a Masu or a Jan-esque role in terms of rising up and becoming a really, really powerful, really talented player in our region. And now we're either going to have to see them not play in the split because they got screwed over, or we're going to have to see them like basically playing for free, which I don't think is necessarily like the thing that they agreed to or the thing that they wanted coming in. So it really sucks for everybody involved. I hope that they stick together in some capacity, but I hope that capacity is not just capitulating and playing for free under the Pulse banner. I hope that they either, make play together in the OQ next split and try to get that spot back, or, maybe this is maybe this being very opportunistic or very unrealistic, but one of these organizations in Citadel, Respawn, Galaxy Gaming's already eliminated, or Tempest, or they're going to be out of a spot because there's only one of those spots left. If they could somehow, I don't know what the financials look like, but if they could get themselves into that spot and just pick up that roster of players, I feel like that could be a decent solution for them too.
I think, God, it's just such a bad look all around. Because of course, I mean, I don't want these players to play for Pulse for free either, because then they just lose all of their power. But I think the reality of NA Tier 2 now is that, like, I think if you want to be a pro League of Legends player, I don't think you can expect to get paid anymore. And I know that's I say that as a huge player advocate, and I'm not saying that's what should happen. I just think that is the reality. And so I don't know what the solution is.
I think it's one thing if you're agreeing to do that, like, from the start. And it's another thing for
I completely agree. That is not my point. That is not my point at all. I completely agree. Yeah, if you're expecting to get paid and then all of a sudden it's gone, then that sucks massively. I'm just saying, like, this is me saying for future, right? Like, I don't think players are able to expect to get paid anymore, because my knee-jerk reaction is that Riot should fire Pulse into the fucking sun and get a new org to come in. But I don't think there is an org to come in, and that's the unfortunate reality that I think we live in, and why I don't feel good about this whole situation, and that's why I don't know what the solution is. Do you get me? Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, I mean, 100%. I mean, it's surprising that has not immediately just become the solution, like another forced sell. I guess.
I mean, we don't know if behind closed doors that is the solution, and it just hasn't happened because there's no one to.
Yeah, I mean, people have kind of been aware that the salaries are down pretty tremendously, especially towards the bottom half of the league. Like, there's no minimum anymore, so players are agreeing to play for, not a couple hundred a month at this point. At the very lowest, and then maybe a couple thousand at the very, very highest per month. I don't
understand why we went for this fucking minor league system and we're still slamming our head into a brick wall trying to make it work, instead of Riot just fucking investing in Scholastic, dude. I'm like,
it's too late.
I know it's too late, but that's because, like, what are we supposed to do? Because most realistically, the solution to the situation is someone plays for Pulse for free. That is probably the most realistic solution to this. And what it's probably going to end up meaning is we're going to have a team of not the 5 best players all playing together. And it's just going to be 5 hopefuls. And, this is no shade towards those players at all. At some point, if you think you can be that next pro player, you want to bet on yourself in this way, I don't hold that against you. And like I literally just said, I think players cannot necessarily expect to get paid anymore, which is the unfortunate reality of the ecosystem. And you have to decide if you think it's worth it for you to play or not based on that, which is I don't hold that against you either way. But I think the likely solution is that someone plays for Pulse for free and they're not the best team, and we lose more people. And I think that's just it. I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah. I mean,
Because I
hopefully-
don't know what you're otherwise supposed to do unless like Tempest Gaming wants to come off the fucking top rope and tell us that they are buying the spot and they're going to pay their players to play for them.
Who knows? I mean, it could happen. I mean, we'll see. I think the fun thing, and that this calls back to the days of No Org and Zeus Gaming and things like that, is they just like say screw it, we're gonna play on our own, we're gonna go into this next OQ, we're gonna win it obviously because we're gonna be very dedicated, and then we're gonna find an organization to sponsor us after that, maybe for free, maybe so they don't have to pay that buy-in fee.
But the problem for the Pulse guys is they would have had to play in this OQ, but Pulse didn't announce this when they knew. So the players couldn't go and play in the OQ. Because I think the problem is that Pulse owns the spot. It's not the player's spot because the players didn't promote with it. It's a different situation. So there's no world, I think, where Tenacity, Cryra, Toasty, Spawn, and Cryogen say, fuck this, guys. We're LCS caliber. We can just do this, because I don't think it's up to them. That's what sucks.
I'm saying
that's what sucks.
Playing in the next split to play for split
sure.
to play to get into split 2, because remember speaking of Doublelift, the first split of NACL actually doesn't mean anything. You get the glory of winning the split and everything like that, but the only important part in terms of promoting into the LTA is actually your performance in split 2. That is the only determining factor in terms of how you do. So if you, as Pulse, if you believe this roster really can do it, and you want to, I think what you do is you play in the OQ, you find an org maybe to sponsor you, and you go through that way.
Maybe that
suck,
is it.
But
Maybe
I think it's better than just like kind of capitulating and paying for playing for free.
No, I agree. These players should not play for Pulse. I think someone's going to play for them, and they're going to be a bad team, and hopefully they get demoted. Yeah, maybe that's the angle, but like this just happens every split. You know what I mean? Like this happened with AOE. This happened with the old Supernova team from like 23. Yeah. I don't know.
Hey, speaking of that awesome, really happy news, let's go on to another thrilling headline here as we go into number 5 to wrap up the show. And it's another one of our beloved superstars leaving us. You talk about Griffin, talk about Jojo Pyun, and now we talk about Yukino, who has, according to Sheep Esports, agreed to terms with K-Corp Blue and will be playing in the LFL for the 2025 spring season. Now, we were very excited about Yukino for the last few years, whether it was on EG Prodigies or he was a sub on No Team back in 2022, and then played a split on 100 Thieves, and then moved over to a bunch of other squads, including CCG Esports and AOQ last year, Disguise this past summer, but was left without an option going into 2025, and so decided to go over to EU, where he'll surely be treated with a lot more hype and a lot more fandom with the guys over at K-Corp, as that is what K-Corp does, and does very, very well for themselves. But it's just another instance of us losing a player that we're really excited about, Hawk, and it sucks.
I mean, the reality is the system has failed the players, and if you're a player in North America and you think you can be a pro League of Legends player, you just have to ask yourself what's in your best interest. And that's what Yukino did. I don't blame him at all. I do think it's funny because I think we can definitively say, based on recent events, that Europe is now the 4th best region in the world behind North America.
Who knows?
At least
It could be the 5th.
At least in terms
We'll see
of quality.
tonight.
That's true. That's true. Maybe Flying Oyster will really drive the dagger in. When this episode comes out, we'll know. I think North America actually, and this is maybe shout out Sean, who actually suggested this as a Patreon headline. We didn't get to it today. Maybe we'll get to it at some point. Is like there was a tweet from the Supernova owner that there's not talent anymore, and they clarified their stance, and they were like, I just mean like compared to the amount of talent that's actually in the region, so many of the players have stopped playing. Like they reference guys like Copy and stuff, which
Very
I think
true.
that's a reasonable take. But there actually is a ton of talent. I mean, we were literally just talking about how cracked our fucking AD carries are right now in this region, and we saw what Jan did to the general sniper of EU last night. So, I think there's a ton of talent in this region, and North America is actually, in my opinion, on an upswing in terms of like the top level of play and how well we're doing, and maybe indicative of a system that did not fail those players back in 2019 to 2022, maybe. but now the system has failed these players.
You know what?
And
Like,
I just legitimately think it takes an honest assessment of like, hey, what's best for me? And Yukino said, I can get money in Europe by playing, and I'm happy for him.
yeah. You know what? I feel like K-Core is such a unique situation that like they have a very, very popular Spanish-speaking creator that is like the the blood and soul of that team, and that is why like they're very, very famous.
Spanish
Like,
speaking?
yeah, isn't Kameto Spanish speaking or?
They surely is French because they're the French
Oh,
organization.
French speaking. That's what I
was
meant.
like,
I was
what?
thinking about Ibai and Koi. And I was
Yeah,
getting
I
confused.
was like that.
French
Dude, we're gonna have
French-speaking
we're gonna have the
streamer.
fucking KC
They're-
fans all up in this episode.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry. Yeah. I mean, like the fact is they have a very, very famous like French streamer that that puts a lot of time and effort and passion into it, and we're seeing that in Europe with him, Ibai, and Cadril now with Los Ratones. And we just don't have that in North America. I don't think that's necessarily a North American problem. I think it's just like for some reason that person just hasn't arisen in NA that like has that level of popularity. You know, in Valorant you have somebody like Tarek who is like the largest streamer and is North American. It just kind of is RNG that way. But yeah, I think when we talk about though like the system, you know, being better or worse, like the system is basically the same that as what it was 5 years ago. The difference is it's not being artificially like inflated with like a lot of money that's coming in or you know right forcing these teams to put a lot of money into it, which you can argue like, hey, if that is actually the case and you know in the system where each academy team is forced to pay these 60K salaries and X, Y, and Z, like maybe that does create a world where these prospects can thrive, but it's clearly just not what any of the teams or the players or sorry, any of the organizations or Riot specifically really wants to do at this point. And so maybe I talked myself in circles to say, yeah, the system is a little bit different than it was a few years ago because
Yeah,
because
I
of
think
that.
the system has definitely changed in the last few years.
Yeah, but I feel like if they were given the if Riot and the orgs like were given the option to kind of just have it the way that it is now, then they would have like there's no inherent value other than like
Right.
I'm trying to play the other
maybe we could have spent that time then coming up with a system that does work instead of one that failed the players now here in 2025.
Listen,
I think that's my point.
I'm trying
that
to come up with some way to go against this somehow, but yeah. I think my argument is that the reason the system is different is because Riot and the orgs have stopped putting the effort and the money into it that it probably deserves in order to keep things thriving. Like if
Right.
if the LCS/LTA if they wanted to be the best region in the world, they would and wanted to be like the most successful esport in the world. If they truly wanted to be the most successful esport in the world, instead of cutting all these things and things like that, they would have put more money into allowing players like Yukino to thrive in NA, allowing players like Griffin to thrive in NA.
Right.
But instead,
I think we're in
they
agreement
didn't.
here.
We're in agreement here. I think. The system of like I guess the system of like minor league teams has proven to be just like not something that works. But that was like because of not because of team player success, but because the orgs and Riot don't want to like put the money and the effort into it. Does that make sense of like where I'm coming from here?
I don't think I've ever heard. I mean this with so much love. I don't think I've ever heard you try so hard to try to figure out what your own point is before. I think that's usually me. Like
You know what? Yeah, maybe we're doing a little role reversal today. Maybe.
Yeah. No, I just enjoyed listening to you talk in circles for like 5 minutes and try to figure out where you're going with that one.
I'm always like on your side of like the system has changed a lot, but I've been seeing these takes that say like, or people talking about, actually like maybe that just wasn't a super sustainable thing, and maybe it wasn't financially for Riot by putting into these specific scenarios, right? Like if Riot is treating esports the way that they're treating it, which is like a thing that has to like immediately make them money, then obviously, yeah, like putting $1 million into a minor league system is not going to work. But if your goal is higher than that, beyond that, which is in 10 years we want to be the biggest esport in the world, we want to be the most successful region in the world, then that is 100% worth it, and we're seeing it with players like Jan.
I think you're complicating your own point a little bit because you are right, and I think people are fair to say, wow, the way tier 2 was in 2021, 2022, or whatever, was not sustainable. Valid point. But the problem therein is that nobody tried to think of something that is, and now that system has failed the players. So yes, you could argue like, oh, that's just what was this was inevitable based on what was happening then. Then why did no one back then take a step back and think long term for 5 seconds? That's the issue that I have. And so I think that's kind of what you're getting at as well. But
Yeah,
I just wanted to drive that one home of like, regardless of what the comparison of the system is from today to then and whether or not it was sustainable, the reality is the system has failed the players. We do not have the resources to support the amount of talent we have in our region right now, and players like Yukino are leaving. That is what is happening right now.
And just like how I'm rooting for Griffin to do well in Korea, and how I'm rooting for JoJo to shit on all those EU mids like he talks about in all of his tweets, I'm rooting for Yukino to do well as well. I hope that he has success because I really think he's a good player. I just wish that all those guys were still in our region and not forced to go somewhere else because of the way the system has been set up. So,
agreed.
Long story short, NA's still better than EU, baby. You could take our players, we're still gonna be better. We're the new talent mill. You know, we used to import from Korea. Now EU players, EU teams are importing from us because we can't hold on to our players, and so they take all the good ones and go away with it. But yeah, that's gonna do it for this episode of Salty Runback. We yapped on for about an hour, which, you know, hopefully doesn't become the
We're
norm.
getting less focused on.
I know. Maybe we should be more focused. Let us know if you like the longer episodes or not. But there's a lot to talk about this week for sure.
There was a lot to talk about. A lot of negative stuff, but I think focus on headline 2 and 3 because that's what we're here to prop up. We love Apex Mission Impossible. I want to love Near Airport. Guys, prove me wrong. Doublelift, I know I went hard on you. If you're watching for some reason, please prove me wrong.
You know he's not watching. He's not 57 minutes into a Salty Runback episode at least. Like maybe
I want
maybe
Near Airport to prove me wrong, and I want them to create some positivity. Maybe help start creating a system that can pay it forward to the next generation and actually not fail our players anymore. Apex Mission Impossible in the NACL, and also a really great bracket coming up next weekend. So be sure to stay tuned for all of that. Games will be happening on the NACL. I won't be on the broadcast, but support Rude and Gordo nonetheless. Also support us. Subscribe to our Patreon. All of our socials at Salty Runback NA. Subscribe here on YouTube. Leave a like, leave a comment. Let us know if you like our yapping and if you agree with all of our statements or not. At Hawkcasts, at Speedy Grapes as well. That's all the stuff. If you agree with or disagree with literally anything we said, take it with a grain of salt. I've been Hawk. It's been Grapes. Have a good one.